Welcome to The Zone. I'm your host, Brian, and we are officially in NFL free agency. We had the draft 2 weeks ago, or the draft combine, and then we had about a week break to catch our breath, prepare for the heart of the offseason, which is the free agency beginning, the beginning of free agency, where all the players announce their new teams or re-signing with their old teams, all their new contracts, jersey swaps, edits, photoshops. Everything happens pretty much around this time, other than simply drafting the next generation of talent. But it has been exciting. It has been a crazy hectic start to this portion of the offseason, and I'm excited to dive into it. So I'm glad you guys joined. I hope you enjoy, and I hope you're ready to be in the zone.
Once you get in a zone, it's kind of like you're in a zone, and there's nothing that can really phase you.
Just being in that zone.
You know he's in the zone. He's making checks.
I just felt like I was in the zone.
Man, I was in the zone that night.
I was in the zone.
You definitely be in the zone.
Just in the zone.
I do feel like I'm in the zone right now, but I feel like we are in the zone.
Now, there's only been one day of free agency so far as this is being recorded. So up till now, there have been a lot of talks about who's won this portion of free agency. Just this one day, but who's won this day, who's lost this day, and by who we mean teams. Is it the Raiders, who went and had a pretty much historic day, in my opinion? I mean, they did a lot of stuff that are uncharacteristic for the Raiders, going out and getting a lot of good pieces. Nakobe Dean, Quay Walker, Tyler Linderbaum, and a bunch of others, including trades, signings, and so forth. But you also had some teams that probably didn't have as good of a session or as good of a day as many people would suggest. And one of those teams is my favorite, the Baltimore Ravens. Now, a lot of people have said that they lost this entire free agency day one, and even partly before day one, because of the recent moves. I mean, the only moves they had three technical moves. The first one was a trade for Max Crosby. Now, this happened now 3 days ago, I think at the time of this recording, it was Friday, and they had traded two firsts, their first this year, which was a 14th pick, and their first next year in 2027 to acquire Max Crosby. And this put a little bit of a kind of like an argument to an extent, not an argument, but a disagreement into whether the Ravens overpaid, which I can agree that they did overpay a little bit, or if they actually did the right move because of how poor their pass rush was. Now, personally, at first, I sat there and was kind of upset with this trade. I didn't like it, but the reason was because I've been sitting the last few days or actually in the last few weeks, going through who the Ravens might select at pick 14. If you don't know, my favorite part of the offseason is the draft. It is preparing who do we bring in to continue this legacy of the Ravens. So I get very caught up in it. So when I saw that the 14th pick was gone, I was upset because that takes the mock drafts out of my hand, at least the first round. However, after a few days of thinking about it, I actually love this trade, and not many Ravens fans do. Now, the reason I love this trade so much is the fact that the Ravens had 30 sacks last year. 30. Now, if you don't know how bad that is, it was one of the worst in the league. I believe it was either 30 or 31st. I mean, it was really, really, really poor. And it didn't help the defense at all, who was already not great. This defense was bottom half of the league for most of the year. Not even bottom quarter. I mean, they were looking anywhere between 26th and 32nd in the league in total defense. I mean, they were not good. And the main problem, or a main issue with it, or main part, is the fact that their pass rush wasn't getting to the quarterback. Their leading sack, so the person that had the most sacks on the team, was a player who was injured in week 3, in Matabike. Now, Matabike had the lead up until week 17 or 16 when Travis Jones finally took it with a total of 4.5 sacks. Now, for comparison, Max Crosby had 10 last year, and he was injured for 6 games. The Raiders didn't play him. Now, what all this means for me, the reason I like it so much is because the Ravens needed a threat on the defensive line. It's what helps bring out younger talent in the back end of the defense. When you look at the cornerbacks, you look at the safeties, you need someone that can provide pressure, someone that the offensive line or that the offense has to scheme around or scheme against to protect their quarterback or protect a play. And Max Crosby brings exactly that. Is he going to be 29 when the season starts? Yes, he'll be 29. But those 2 first-round picks, especially for a team like the Ravens who are trying to win a Super Bowl now, have absolutely no value. That's a little bit of a statement. They do have some value, but to a team that's trying to win now, those first round picks don't provide immediate value for a team or immediate benefit, because you're going to have to get those players in that are young, and then you're going to have to try and develop them. You're going to have to try and develop them to become starters in very limited time. Typically for a rebuilding team, you can take a year, 2 years, 3 years to let a prospect develop into a high caliber starter or player. With the Ravens, who their window for winning a Super Bowl, their time frame for winning a Super Bowl is shortening, you don't have that much time to be flexible to try and develop a good player. So trading those first 2 picks, in my opinion, after a few days was perfectly fine, because you want an immediate impact player who's solidified in the NFL, and that is Max Crosby, one of the top 5 best defensive edges in the entire league. So for me, after a few days, I really, really like the trade for Max Crosby. Do I think the Raiders may have won it? The only way the Ravens could argue that they won it is if they win a Super Bowl this year or next year with Max Crosby under contract with the Ravens. If they don't win a Super Bowl, I'll give the edge to the Raiders, just because they get 2 first-round picks and they're able to continue their rebuild over the next few years to get back to contending for playoffs or Super Bowl. But as for right now, I think right now it's going to go to the Raiders. You have to win a Super Bowl if you're the Ravens in order to win this trade. Now, the other 2 moves they made, specifically during the first day of free agency, was retaining Tyler Huntley, which to me is a big deal. They got him on I believe it's a 2-year, $11 million deal, which is pretty big because Tyler Huntley is such a good backup quarterback, specifically for the Ravens. He hasn't had a lot of success outside of this organization, but the way the Ravens offense is formed, yes, they have a new offensive coordinator, but the way their offense runs and the way Lamar Jackson plays, Tyler Huntley simulates that pretty well. It's not the exact same as Lamar, because Lamar is one of one, but Tyler Huntley is able to scramble as close to Lamar as you can get. He's able to throw the ball similar, he plays similar, and he knows just the team and the organization. He knows what is expected as him when he puts on the purple and black. So Tyler Huntley was a really good retainee. They were able to retain him, sign him to an extension, and keep him in Baltimore for the next 2 years. The other signing they had was John Simpson. Now, John Simpson was in Baltimore 2 years ago in 2023 when they had a really good football team. That was when they went to the AFC Championship. They were 14-3, I believe. Lamar had his second MVP. Everyone thought they were going to make the Super Bowl. Mike McDonald was the defensive coordinator, who's now the Seahawks head coach. And then everything fell apart. They didn't win. The coaching staff got poached. Most of their players got poached. And ultimately, John Simpson was one of those players that left in free agency to go to the Jets. In those 2 years of the Jets, he played pretty well. He was their starting left guard. And then he came back during the first day of free agency. The Ravens signed him back this year to rejoin the Ravens for the 2026-2027 season. Now, this brought up a lot of controversy because usually the Ravens are ones to wait in the free agency market. Typically, when the free agency starts at that deadline or at that starting point, they wait a day or 2 to let the market settle and really get a good offer for decent veteran players. However, this was one of the first signings in the first hour that was announced, which some people got offended by, which I don't understand because I still think it's a good deal. Simpson was signed for 3 years, $30 million. He's averaging $10 million a year, which is pretty good for a starting guard. And he's only 28 years old. And for a guard, that gives you a solid 3 to 5 years of good play, decent play at least, that you can contribute to a team. So I love the John Simpson signing. I think it's perfect. We had a really big issue at the guards, and personally, I really, really like it. Now, some Ravens fans had issues with that signing specifically, thinking it's either an overpay or a bad decision because of John Simpson's inability to play, I wouldn't say legally, but essentially he had really bad issues with holding and causing penalties, which can hurt an offense, but can also be taught out of. You know, we have a very good offensive line coach that just got hired, and I believe his name is Drew Ledford from the Atlanta Falcons, and he is one of the better coaches for the offensive line in the entire NFL. I think he can help Simpson improve those penalties and those tendencies to have holdings or any other penalty committed. With that being said, I do like the Simpsons signing, but some people came out after the signing and said this is the worst decisions the Ravens could make. And I 100% disagree. They would go on here and they would say, these are the same people, by the way, that go on and say, we need a guard, we need offensive line help, we need this, we need that. We sign an offensive lineman who is decent, very decent in my opinion, actually probably good, above average, and yet people still want to complain because it's the Ravens, and the Ravens fans want to complain anyway, and they complain that we didn't spend that money on a tight end or our center or our fullback. And I'm like, what do you expect the Ravens to do? They're already cap strapped, where they're already $12 million over the cap limit with Lamar Jackson and Max Crosby. So what do you expect them to sign if they already are at limits with the cap space? They're in negative cap space, which is not good because you get penalized. And penalize equals losing draft picks or worse. I mean, you can do anything else. But the Ravens aren't going to be able to sign people, especially top people or good people, or re-sign their own players if they don't have the cap space, which is why I get irritated with fans coming out here going, well, why didn't they just sign this guy? Or why didn't they just sign that guy? Or why didn't they do this? Why didn't they do that? So it's very frustrating to me that fans don't look behind the curtain and realize that there's more than just, ooh, I like that player. I'm going to go get that player because I like him and I don't care about money. Because there is a system. There's a salary cap for a reason in the NFL, and the Ravens have to abide by it. And a big way they can get under this cap to sign more players is by extending Lamar. And now Lamar doesn't have an agent, for those that may not know. Lamar is one of the very few players, and probably one of the only superstars, that is representing himself. It's him and his mom. They're representing himself, which means he gets 100% of the contract profit or the contract money. This makes it very difficult because the GM, Eric DeCosta, has to negotiate with Lamar Jackson. He has to be able to talk to Lamar because Lamar doesn't have an agent. Well, it's very tough to talk to Lamar when he's working out or when he's not here or when he's in Florida or anywhere else. So it makes contract negotiations much tougher, but it is feasible. It is possible because it's happened before. The problem now is they're trying to negotiate on a length and on an amount of money. Probably, most likely, it's amount of guaranteed money. Now, Lamar right now is under $74.5 million in a cap hit if he doesn't extend his contract or restructure. All right. If he extends his contract, the Ravens will save nearly $40 million, putting them $30 million under the cap salary, giving them the flexibility to sign other players. So this is a big thing that people don't take in consideration, and it really started to show when people later in the free agency day, people started reacting to the Ravens not tendering Keaton Mitchell. Now, Keaton Mitchell is a young running back. He's about 24, 25 years old, and he's very good, extremely talented, very fast. He's averaging like 6 yards, maybe even 7 yards per carry in his career, in his entire career, 3-year career. He's been able to average that, but he hasn't been used properly. I've been a big fan of him. I absolutely love him. However, the Ravens had the option to tender him. Now, tendering a free agent or tendering a player means that you essentially own his rights to sign him or match an offer that he gets, but he still has the freedom to go out and test the market. So he might go out and test the market by going to, let's say, the Giants, all right? So he's part of the Ravens, but he goes to the Giants under this first round tender, okay? He goes to the Giants offer him 3 years, $15 million. The Ravens have the opportunity under this tender to then go and match that offer or let him walk. If he walks, he goes over to the Giants. If they match the offer, he has to sign with the Ravens. Now, there's a first round tender and a second round tender. The second is more expensive because it gives you a longer time window or a longer window opportunity to sign that player. So for Keaton Mitchell, when I was looking, kind of doing my own little research about what exactly the cost might be for each player, when the Ravens looked at Keaton Mitchell, who has had a major injury, he kind of bounced back, but they also have a very heavy running back room that is being paid a lot of money in Derrick Henry and Justice Hill. With Keaton Mitchell, a first-round tender costs about nearly $4 million. I think it's $3.8 million. A second-round tender costs about $5.8, so about $6 million. If the Ravens, you guys can do the easy math, if the Ravens are already cap tight, like tight on cap, how are they going to be able to tender a player and pay him money if they're already $12 million over the cap limit? Okay. And people, when they saw this happen, were like, the Ravens are the stupidest organization. They're so dumb. Why don't you tender this guy? He's so good. The main reason is the money. Once Lamar's contract goes through, the Ravens will have so much freedom and be able to sign so many different players. But the problem is the extension. And that's a big focal point of this entire free agency for the Ravens. And that's something that people need to understand, is that Again, it's more than just, I like this player, I'm going to sign him. Or this player is a fan favorite, or this player is really good, I'm going to sign him. There is a whole monetary aspect that people don't want to focus on, or don't understand, or don't know that goes into being a general manager. So when we look at this, that was a big reason. The other reason was the fact that Justice Hill was a better all-around running back. And by that, it basically means that he was able to primarily, which I've heard, is that he's a better pass blocker. And I've seen it with my own eyes. He's a better pass blocker. Typically, when you're going deep, like throwing deep balls, or you're trying to have your wide receivers go deep to attack larger portions of the field, get a 20-yard throw or a 30-yard throw completed, you want an extra blocker in the backfield sometimes. And that way, you use your running back. Well, Justice Hill is a much better pass blocker than Keaton Mitchell, and he's on a little bit better team deal right now. I think he's signed through 2027, 2028. So he's on a deal already that the Ravens don't have to worry about adding more money to their cap salary. With that being said, it was easy for the Ravens, I guess, to understand to take Justice Hill, who is a better pass blocker, a better all-around running back, and already signed, than adding another running back to the mix to not only make the room more clogged, but also to add more money to the cap issue, which they're trying to resolve. So that was a big issue. But now going to the people they actually lost, because yes, they had these players that they talked about, and they, decided to tender or not tender, or they decided to re-sign or sign, or whatever the case is. Now let's talk about the players the Ravens lost, because this is where a lot of people say the Ravens lost free agency. They only made one sign outside of the team. They re-signed one player and they traded for one player. They lost in the first 12 hours of free agency. They lost 7 players. And all of these players either contributed to the team or started for the team. The first player gone was, I believe, Isaiah Likely at the time. He was within like the first hour and a half. He was a tight end that was the second tight end on the roster. So he was right behind Mark Andrews, but he was used a lot. He went to the Giants. You then had Jordan Stout go to the Giants. That was our starting punter, one of the best punters in the league. He was starting. He went to the Giants. Then you had Tyler Linderbaum go to the Raiders, which was the big signing. That was the big loss that a lot of people say why the Ravens lost free agency right there, was that big signing, which I'll get to in a second. You then had Alohi Gilman. He was the last signing I think announced. He went to the Chiefs. You had Darius Washington, another safety. Both of those guys were rotating in as the third safety for the Ravens. Both of them signed. Darius went to the Giants. Gilman went to the Chiefs. And then you had Draymond Jones go to the Patriots. And then I believe I'm forgetting another guy. You had 3 Giants. You had a Raiders, which was Linderbaum. You had Chiefs, Patriots, and then I don't know why I'm blanking on the other one, but it'll probably come to me in a little bit. Either way, you had a lot of players leave in this offseason, in this free agency, in just 12 hours. And they still have other players like Patrick Ricard, Charlie Kolar. That was the guy that I was thinking of. Charlie Kolar, who was the third tight end, signed with the Chargers. Now, you still have Ricard that could possibly leave, and I think they had a total of 19 possible free agents, including Kyle Van Noy, Patrick Ricard, and a few others. So the Ravens already lost 7 contributors, at the very least contributors, if not starters. And the biggest name was Tyler Linderbaum. Now, Likely was thrown out. That was a tight end. Likely was thrown out simply because he was very young. He's like 26, and he's very good. However, the Ravens signed Mark Andrews, and they had to move on. Charlie Kolar went as well, which was kind of a blow because the Ravens were hoping to sign him, but they're going to have to go 2. So you lost 2 tight ends. You only have 1 left on the roster, but no worries. The draft is a deep class, which is why I think people should not be too worried when these tight ends leave. Punter, you can replace that. Draymond Jones, he was the edge, defensive end. He wasn't as vital as people say because you got Max Crosby. And then you look at your 2 safeties. While it is big, it's not necessarily a detriment to the team for the reason of the fact that they have 2 first-round safeties in Kyle Hamilton and Malachi Starks, and you can very easily either sign or find another safety to rotate in, or just change your scheme. Either one works. But the big loss is Tyler Linderbaum, the center, who is only 25 years old, signing a 3-year, $81 million deal with the Raiders. This deal was $27 million a year, which sounds ridiculous, and it's even more ridiculous when you find out that the next closest center in payment value per year is Creed Humphrey at 18. There is a $9 million difference. And Linderbaum decided to move on to the Raiders. Now, there's rumors that the Ravens offered a 4-year, $88 million deal, which would have gave him $22 million per year, and would have given him $7 million more with one extra year of guarantee, or at least of contract. Apparently, throughout this conversation, reportedly the Linderbaum's agent did not pick up or return Ravens calls. So when DaCosta or Biscotti, when they called Linderbaum's agent, their agents for Linderbaum did not pick up. They didn't answer the phone, which is a big issue when you're trying to do a negotiation because the agent's supposed to negotiate contract. Now, it could just be that they were offended by the offer. It could be that they were looking for more money. I have no idea. I'm not even 100% sure that information is correct. But the 4 years, $88 million contract was correct. That was the deal they were trying to get to Tyler Linderbaum, whether he heard it or not. Now, a lot of people got offended because Ravens fans, we apparently easily get upset, which is fair. And so when they do this, when the news broke that Linderbaum ended up signing with the Raiders, a lot of players are like, well, why couldn't you make the money work? And again, that comes back to cap restrictions. You're stuck in a cap debt of $12 million. Plus, when you look at it, I love Tyler Linderbaum. I absolutely love him. He's 25 years old, but he is not worth $27 million. He is making more annual average value of a contract. He's making more money per year on average than Kyle Hamilton. And I think Kyle Hamilton is more important to the Ravens than Tyler Linderbaum was. Yes, we had a bad offensive line, but that doesn't mean Tyler Linderbaum should be getting a whole house. He shouldn't be getting the entire, I think someone did the math. It's about 6% of the entire salary cap would be going to Tyler Linderbaum. He does not deserve that. I love Tyler Linderbaum. He does not deserve 6% of that cap. That's just not what it is. You can find a replacement. It's not going to be as good of a replacement, but you can find one. Elton Jenkins, a Green Bay center who got released, who's 30 years old, would be a great fill-in. I think that might work perfectly for the Ravens. You have another one, Corey Bullock, who is a 24-year-old Maryland graduate college player who is coming from, he was undrafted 2 years ago, 2024. He's been with the team for 2 years. He's apparently been really good in practice and preseason, but obviously Tyler Linderbaum has been in front of him. Maybe you give Bullock a chance. Maybe you bring him up to let him play, because even Linderbaum was talking highly of him, saying he's ready to play. He's just behind one of the best centers in the league. You also can go to the draft. The draft has a lot of center talent. This draft is one of the best and most deepest drafts that we've seen in a while. And the Ravens can fill a lot of needs without even needing a first-round pick. They can fill in a lot of needs. So I don't want to overreact. I don't think people should sit here and go, oh, the Ravens are going to lose, they're going to be bad, they're going to do this, they're going to do that. Because a lot of these players and a lot of these contributors, yes, they contributed, but they weren't the key pieces, the key players, or the stars that helped the Ravens succeed in previous years. This wasn't Kyle Hamilton. This wasn't Zay Flowers. This wasn't Lamar. This wasn't Derrick Henry. This wasn't Ronnie Stanley, whether you like him or not. He was a key piece at the left side of the tackle. This wasn't Matabike. This wasn't Travis Jones. This wasn't Mike Green, Malachi Starks, Kyle Hamilton, Nate Wiggins. These aren't the big pieces that affect a team's winning. They might add a win or two in total, but they're not going to decide whether you have 10 wins versus 5 wins. It's not that impactful. The only one that even comes close to that would be Tyler Linderbaum, but there are ways to fix that. There are ways to solve that. So I don't want people to come in here, or if you guys are watching, I don't want you guys to go look on Twitter and see all these people saying bad things, overreacting about whatever it may be. Whether it's, oh, the Ravens are going to lose because they haven't signed all these key players, or, oh man, the Ravens look awful this year because they lost 7 players. Because these players are great, but they're not starters. They weren't, at least with the Ravens. They were very good contributors. Most of them were very good contributors, outside again of Tyler Linderbaum, but they weren't necessarily starters that impacted the game as highly as a starter would. They're going to better spots. Likely is probably going to be the starting tight end. Kohler's probably going to be either the starting or second tight end. Keaton Mitchell, if he gets signed, if he does end up leaving, will probably be one of the top 2 backs instead of the 3rd or 4th back on this team. So just take it with a grain of salt when you see these comments, because a lot of people want to be negative, but this isn't a point to be negative because you have a lot of offseason left. This is the first day of free agency, and I believe it's over 150 to 200 days before the first game, before the first week of football. So take the time. We have 10 draft picks as the Ravens. The Ravens have 10 draft picks in this draft. And if they get this extension done, which I think they will, I assume that it'll be done before March 11th, because I think that's the cap hit for the salary cap for 2026 being set in stone. So they're going to get this done by March 11th. they're going to find a way to have about $30, maybe $25 million in cap space, and they'll find a way to fix the holes that they have. So don't overreact. Don't listen to the people on Twitter. Don't fall in a black spiral hole. Like, don't fall in that rabbit hole of being like, oh man, the Ravens are going to be bad, the Ravens are going to be this, the Ravens are going to be that. Because I think they will turn out just fine. They have a new coaching staff. They still have their star-studded players. They just need the small holes to be filled. And some of the people I'm looking for, because this is a fun free agency class, some of the people I'm looking for as a Ravens fan, as a diehard fan that has been looking to plug in holes, I'm looking at Roger McCreary, young 25-year-old cornerback that played for the Rams, played for the Titans. I'm looking at Chigoziem Okonkwo, who used to play for the Maryland Terrapins in college 4 years ago. He played for the Titans for 4 years. I really like him as a 26-year-old tight end. He would be great there. You look at Elton Jenkins. I never know if I pronounce his name right. He was the center for the Packers that just got cut. 30 years old. Would be a great candidate because he doesn't affect the compensatory pick. A compensatory pick is essentially a pick a team receives when they lose a player to free agency. So, for example, the Ravens are getting a 5th-round pick when likely left to the Giants to get signed. If you're looking at wide receiver, a player that I really want the Ravens to trade for, I don't think it's going to happen, is Brian Thomas Jr. Send Rashad Bateman a 3rd-round pick and a 4th-round pick. You can get Brian Thomas in as a 23, 24-year-old who can be your X receiver next to Zay Flowers. There are a lot of solutions that you can do that can fix these holes that I really think I'll like in free agency, that I think the Ravens would like in free agency. So don't overreact. Everything will be fine. There is a lot of rumors. There's a lot of stuff flying around, but the Ravens know what they're doing. They've done this year in and year out. 2023 was a great example. Last year was a really good example of them losing players to other teams and finding a way to fill in those holes and still produce a good team. Was last year what they hoped? No. But 2023 was. They were even actually, I think, exceeding hopes then. 2022 was. So don't overreact in how all of this goes because they are in a good spot. It doesn't seem like it now because 7 players left, but they are going to do well and they are in a good spot. So that's all for me today in this episode. If you guys did stay to the end, I thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you guys next time on In the Zone.